Welcome to Get the Balance Right, a podcast for female entrepreneurs looking for a quirky spin on business. I'm your host, Heather Zeitzwolf, CPA and profitability coach. I'm a longtime vegan, Gen Xer, cat mom, drag queen enthusiast, and collector of weird dolls and lunchboxes. If you want kick-ass information that includes zany commentary and a dab of woo-woo, then you've come to the right place. I want to help you build a business based on your passion and authentic voice. Are you ready to take control of your finances so you can earn, keep, and grow the money you deserve? If you're a solo entrepreneur that isn't afraid to do things scrappy, then roll up your sleeves and let's get the balance right. Hey, peeps, this is Heather Zeitzwolf, and you are listening to Get the Balance Right podcast. We are still in the series From Passion to Profit, and this is episode 97, so we are getting close to 100 episodes, and we will be taking a break after episode 99 to kind of regroup, rebrand, and come out with a brand spanking new season, which will start up with episode 100. So, in the meantime, I would love for you guys to help promote the podcast, and by doing so, you will enter in a contest to win a 3-hour VIP session with me. So, what do you have to do this? Okay, what I would love for you to do is go onto the social medias and post about this podcast, about Get the Balance Right, and then tag me so you can find my socials in the show notes. Make sure that you use 2 hashtags. So one of the hashtags is Get the Balance Right podcast, and the second hashtag is From Passion to Profits. So it's From Passion to Profits with an S, and tag me. And if you want to rate and review the podcast, wonderful. That's awesome. Send me a snapshot of that and I will enter you in the contest. If you want to promote that by taking that snapshot and putting it on Instagram, on Facebook, or whatever, just tag me again and use both of the hashtags. And every time you do an entry, you have one more entry into the contest and you have better chances of winning the free VIP session with me, which normally costs $999. Okay, what's up today? Well, on this episode, we are talking to Rita Perez about her business, Ritaventures. She helps mission-driven change makers empower and inspire their people through out-of-the-box community-building ventures through travel. She is a group cruise specialist, and if you want to design a cruise that will be so much fun for either your employees or you want to put on a retreat or something, she is the gal to contact. So today I'm recording this and my belly is really full. Why is my belly so full? Well, I'm not usually so gluttonous, but today was all about gluten-freeness and veganism. And I hung out with my friend Illiquity, who has the gluten-free travel podcast. And we went to a bunch of different gluten-free places around Portland. And they were all either 100% vegan or very vegan friendly. And we shared all kinds of decadent desserts, savory meals, beverages. Oh my God, I ate so much today, but it was really, really good. If you are interested in hearing all about it, be sure to tune into the Gluten-Free Travel podcast. And there's going to be several episodes talking about all our wonderful meals and deliciousness that we had. Also, I just want to say that this past weekend, I found out that a very old friend who used to be a boss of mine passed away. I don't know exactly which day that he passed away, but I am really saddened by the news because he was an awesome person. On the podcast, I actually gave a shout out to him, John Steepleton. It was on one of the earlier podcasts because I interviewed Ben Herman, who Ben and I met through working for John Steepleton. And such tragic news that he died. He actually just had a birthday like a couple weeks ago. I believe he turned 56, so he's very close to my age, and very sad and disturbing that he died so suddenly. John, I just want to give another shout out to you, and I'm saddened by this news and so sorry to his whole family and everything. So it's weird knowing somebody that passed away. It's just strange. Like, I would see the stuff that he would post on Instagram. He was taking photographs. He was traveling all over the place, and it's just freaky. Now he's gone, and he's so young. It seems, oh my God, it's just so tragic. People, this is just a reminder that every day, enjoy life, live life like it's your last day. Don't be gluttonous like I was today, but not every day at least. But enjoy life. Don't complain about things. Just enjoy life because you just never know when the end is coming. Oh, I feel so bad. And then just recently, my cat died. And I want to give a shout out to the people that gave me some really kind words about hearing about my cat, Sebastian, that passed away. I miss my little buddy. All right, so sadness, let's put all the sadness aside. And this is a really fun, all my interviews seem to be fun. I always pick people that are really fun to talk to. Rita has a really great podcast. So if you are interested in this topic, you got to catch it. It's called the Cruise Retreat Podcast. And it's really fun to listen to because even if you're maybe not in the travel industry, it's still fun to think about travel and think about how you can incorporate it into your business, whether it's with your employees or for some sort of retreat that you want to plan. And that's kind of a cool thing to be able to put on a retreat, and doing it on a cruise is actually easier many times than doing it on land because a cruise is so self-contained. They take care of all the meals. There's other activities, so you don't have to worry about paying for those. Drinks are oftentimes taken care of. The lodging is taken care of. It's easy to control the price. It's so hard when you try to plan a retreat where you don't know how many people are actually going to show up when you first book it, because a lot of the costs associated with planning a retreat is around how many people that are going to be there. So a cruise is a great option. Now, to me, whenever I think of cruises, I think of Love Boat. I grew up in the 70s, so of course I think of Love Boat. I don't subject Rita to any jokes around Love Boat, but man, I was so tempted to do the whole Isaac with the fingers sticking out, like, hey, Isaac was the bartender, and he, like, no matter what bar you went to on the Love Boat, he was always the bartender. It was in the Pirates Cove or oh God, what was it called? The Lido Deck. He was always there. I don't think Isaac ever got any time off. He was always at every single bar, wherever they went. It was like, oh, who's the bartender? It's Isaac. There was also the bar at the pool, and Isaac was always there as well. God, I can't remember what the name of that bar was that was like, I want to call it the Pirates Cove bar, and there was the Lido Deck. Was that what the bar? Wait a minute. I can't remember. Okay, so people out there, if you can figure it out, what was the name of the different bars that Isaac was the bartender at? Lido Deck is coming into my brain. I don't know if that means like by the pool. I used to love to watch Love Boat and Fantasy Island when I was a kid. So to me, going on a cruise has always been something that I was intrigued by, but I've actually never been on a cruise. So this is another one in the From Passion to Profit series. Rita Perez, she's following her passion, man. She loves to travel, and guess what? She is doing it. She picked the perfect business to get into. So if you are someone who loves travel and you're like, man, I want to start a business that is with my passion around travel, this one is going to be really inspiring. If you are someone that's already has a business and you're like, man, I want to incorporate travel into my business, retreats, that's kind of an interesting thing. Yeah. All right. Well, sit back, relax. I know that I'm going to relax because I've got a belly full of gluten-free vegan food. All right, here is my interview with Rita Perez. Rita Perez, welcome to Get the Balance Right podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
I am super excited to have you here. I've been really enjoying your podcast, and you have taken a passion for travel and turned it into a business all around travel. This is so exciting because I have had people come to me and they were like bloggers that wanted to talk about travel, and they actually wanted to deduct all their travel expenses, and I'm like, hey, you're not really making this into a business. But you made it into a business. So tell us, Rita, how in the world did you start getting into travel as an occupation?
I started back in 2010, and it was a collision of two big things. And that was I was finishing up my master's degree. I was taking an elective on creativity. I honestly didn't think I was a creative person, but I found that entrepreneurship was a form of creativity. So that was one thing. And then at the same time, one of my really good friends was getting married, and she was like, I'm not getting married in the States. I'm going to get married where my future husband's family is from, in Tunisia, which is a small country in Northern Africa. So those two things, and just the life-changing experience that happened where us as friends really became family, and meeting his family really became our family, just the connections and the relationships. I was like, I want to create these types of experiences for other people. And that's how the travel business started in fall of 2010.
Wow, you started off as an entrepreneur in travel, then you actually went straight from your passion. It wasn't like you learned the ropes. What were you doing before that? You were a student, but did you have a career before that?
Yeah, so my background is majority in the hospitality industry. So I'm based in Orlando, Florida, and I've worked at many of the major theme parks, different hotels, resorts here in the area. So I was doing the travel business part-time while working full-time in the theme parks. And it wasn't until last year. I know for many of us, especially with everything that happened in the pandemic, lots of things kind of were revealed. And I just took the plunge and I went full-time in my travel business last year.
Wow, that's so exciting. And how long have you been doing the podcast?
That started out of the pandemic also. I started that June of 2020. So it'll be 2 years in almost a month.
Wow. And tell us about your podcast.
It's the Cruise Retreat podcast. I do a couple of different things, but I've really been focusing this year on giving you lots of tips and insights. I specialize in creating retreat experiences or group trip experiences on cruise ships. And this can be like big ocean ships or river cruise ships. I take all the insights, especially from this amazing year that I've had traveling almost every other month now. And I share those different experiences with you because I know that, one, not a lot of people know that you can plan group trips, especially educational sessions on cruise ships. And then how does that actually happen? What does that look like? What do you need to be planning or aware of during the process?
These group programs, are these to go on a company retreat? Is it to put on maybe a business retreat for, female entrepreneurs? Or is it completely educational for kids to learn? Who is going on these cruise ships?
All of the above. I specialize really in more 18 and up. Entrepreneurs is one side. So I love that you mentioned female entrepreneurs getting together, doing some networking, having a little bit of coaching or strategizing, masterminding during the sessions that you might have. This is also really great for teams. If you wanted to bring in, this can be just small mom and pop business, or this can be large corporate teams to bring their teams on board, either strategize for the year, or I also work with a local tech company and they bring their team kind of as a kickoff for the year. And they do a lot of their recognition for people who have achieved things throughout the year. So high earners in sales, or just people who have stood out with different relationships that they've built throughout the company. And it can also be completely leisure. You don't need any education at these types of events. If you just want to get away, get together, and just completely be more of a networking opportunity, and maybe some education off and on. Or even I recently came off of a river cruise in the Provence region in France, and I did a lot of professional photos. I've picked up a little photography passion within myself and all the recent travels. A lot of the people on that trip have awesome photos that they can showcase in their social media or whatever content they have now too.
Wow. And then do they tag you? How do you get more business? How do you drum up more referrals for your business? Is a lot of it through social media?
There's some of it through social media. So I'm most active on Instagram and LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been pretty popular for me recently because I have been posting and exposing people to the possibilities of utilizing river cruise ships in Europe to put on these types of retreats as opposed to like a hotel conference center or retreat center. I've been able to schedule a lot of like connection calls recently. So if somebody's not using or hasn't been using LinkedIn fully, I say both you need thought-provoking posts to engage with potential clients, but also comment on other people's posts. I think that almost is even better than having my own content, even though it's important. Showing the effort and not just like, hey, that's great. Like actually commenting something of substance on another person's post is really meaningful to the original content creator.
Yeah, and they really appreciate it as well because it helps them with the algorithms and it shows that people are engaged with their content and they didn't waste their time developing the content. A like is fine. It doesn't get you enough bang for your buck when it comes down to it. For my own business, I've been very interested in putting together business retreats. During the pandemic, it was really difficult to schedule something because everything was so up in the air and changing all the time. But what I found in my research was that it's a lot easier to plan a business retreat through a cruise line or using a cruise than it is trying to arrange hotels or like a big Airbnb that everyone's going to stay in or activities and all the things. Because on a cruise, it's self-contained and you got the meals taken care of. Is that kind of what you have found? And is that why you lean more towards cruising?
Yes. And I love that you mentioned that. I'm like, woohoo, just to like bring the awareness that that's even possible. One of the biggest reasons that I love utilizing the vehicle of cruise ships for retreats is that it's a mostly or all-inclusive environment, depending on the cruise line that you sail with, meaning that once an attendee pays for their cruise fare, most, if not all of their meals are included, beverages are included, entertainment's included, activities are included, entertainment and activities in terms of the cruise ship. This doesn't include your activities, of course, but it helps you as the retreat runner save so much money because that is extra dollars that you're not having to shell out from your original retreat budget. It's just what comes in the cruise fare. And that also includes your meeting space on board. So if you needed like projector, projection screen, microphones, podiums, that is included.
Wow. And it seems like there's more predictability than around what the pricing is going to be, because that was another thing I found, and it was dependent upon, well, if you get 12 people, the price goes down, and it's all dependent on size. Where a cruise, I would imagine that they have more of a flat fee. How does that work with the pricing? You know, if you said, okay, I'd love to have 10 people, but then only 5 people sign up, how do you work at the pricing? Is there a difference?
It is definitely more flexible because I know you kind of like are going into attrition. And if you don't sell so many on a hotel retreat, then you are responsible still for making up the cost of that. Whereas on a cruise ship, it's a little bit different. It's more like this invisible block. So I can say that I want 10 cabins and this is how much those 10 cabins are going to cost. But graciously, for the most part, if I don't fill those 10 cabins, cruise line is just going to take back those rooms and they're going to sell them on their own. Similarly, if you need more than 10 rooms, as long as there's availability and pricing hasn't changed, or you can communicate if there's any pricing changes, you're able to add what you need in there as well.
Wow. If people are thinking about, hey, I want to do something like this, is this something where you would recommend people check out a cruise beforehand, or is there a way to see the ship? Or just kind of go for it? Like before you started this, had you kind of checked out cruise lines beforehand before getting into this? What are your suggestions for people?
I am an avid cruiser. I think I'm hitting almost 30 at the end of this year. I'll be at 30 cruises.
Wow.
So if you have cruised before, you obviously are going to have a little bit leg up as to the different types of meeting space, the lounges, conference centers that you can utilize on the cruise ships. But that's also a benefit of working with someone like myself, who is a professional travel advisor and who has been on many cruises, is that we are like your cruise retreat matchmaker. We talk with you and discuss what your goals are, kind of like what you're envisioning this retreat being, and can automatically start filtering. Okay, you're not meant for this cruise line, but maybe we can go through this cruise line. Similarly, okay, this itinerary is not going to work for you, but Alaska probably could work for you. There's so many complexities based on really what your goals are and how much education, how many sessions you want to have aboard, and then how much downtime, as well as like, what are your dreams as the retreat host? Do you just see yourself going to the south of France and being like, it's okay if I have to cut a little bit on education because I really want to travel here, and I know many people want to travel with me, so let's do that instead.
Okay, so you're actually the person, you hire you, then you take care of all the arrangements. Or are you the one making sure that there's going to be a podium in the room? Or
exactly.
Oh,
Yep. I've got you covered.
Wow. Okay, so let's back up for a second. You said you were from Orlando and mentioned the parks. Of course, I'm going to think of Disney, and not saying that you necessarily work for Disney, but of course, Disney has cruise lines. Is that kind of how you got interested in cruising, was through the theme parks you were working for? Or, I mean, Orlando is not by the ocean. There is Kissimmee. I don't know if that's got any river cruises on there, but
no. Orlando is actually about an hour away from two large cruise ports, which is Port Canaveral and then Port of Tampa. Florida is just a big cruise hub. We have Port of Miami, Port Everglades, which is in Fort Lauderdale. I grew up with cruising. I think my first cruise was on a Disney ship, I think when I was in 7th or 8th grade. Fun little fact, Disney has these ambassadors. So they select certain cast members to be ambassadors for the year. And the ambassadors are kind of like that, ambassadors for the company. And my cousin happened to be one during that year. I think it was 99 or 2000, because there's special perks that come with that. We were able to sail on one of the maiden voyages.
Wow, that's so cool. I knew somebody that took his kids on one of those, and it was unbelievable. He said they'd come back to the room and there was like stuff on the pillows for the kids and stuff. Wow. You know, I'm a vegan, so of course I think about my necessary diet. When you think of cruise line, you think of giant buffets with carved meats and all that kind of stuff. And I know that the cruise lines are going out of their way for people that have dietary restrictions, like gluten-free and maybe nut allergies. Do you have any feedback on that? And are certain cruise lines better for that?
Oh, yes. I love that you mentioned that, because I am an autoimmune patient. So I have something called Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And in the past year, I have cut out a lot of stuff, and that includes gluten and dairy. I am very cognizant of certain things like that. Immediately when you said vegan, I'm like, Virgin Voyages. Because
really?
Virgin is brand new cruise line, was supposed to come out in 2020, but we all know what happened there. But all their menus are like very identifiable, where if something is a vegan option, a vegetarian option, or a gluten-free option. And not only that, but their food is so high quality and delicious. I was so impressed when I sailed them, and I was like, I need to plan a group trip on here, because I know if I liked it, I would consider myself somewhat of a foodie, and they were able to take care of my dietary needs. I feel comfortable that they'll be able to take care of anyone else's. And same, the river cruise line that I work with very closely, Alma Waterways, I've never had any issues with my dietary needs. And I know that they have special vegetarian menus that I'm pretty confident that they can make those vegan as well.
Wow. Yeah, because that is one of those things stuck out at sea. I traveled to Mexico and they've got Cascos there even, so you can at least, I know I'm going to get some soy milk and some cereal. So, although sometimes I bring that in my suitcase with me. You followed your passion. So you worked in hospitality beforehand. What has been some of the benefits of following your passion? It sounds like you've been doing a lot of traveling.
Oh my goodness. Well, I resigned from my full-time position last May. And not that I can advocate for everyone doing this because everybody's in a different situation, but it was literally life-changing in so many ways. It's very cliche to say that I wish I had done it sooner, but the world literally opened for me when I did that. I was talking with a friend earlier that it's not even that I've been able to travel as much as I have been this past year, but I just feel more fulfilled. I have better relationships with people. And because of that, we were talking about stress and being in a job that you don't like and don't feel appreciated in. And once that burden has kind of been lifted, you're able just to open your capacity to so many other things. I cannot exude joy more than I can because it's coming up on the 1-year anniversary of when I did put in my resignation notice. I hope that everybody can feel this elation because I feel like everyone deserves it. You've worked your booties off throughout the years. I recommend following your passion and really leaning in on that because other people see the joy within you also. And it's very charismatic. It's a charismatic feeling.
One of the scary things, though, about following your passion is when you first start a business, you're like, okay, well, this is great. I'm following my passion, but where am I going to get these sales? Or where am I going to get clients? Right. Where are they going to come from? I'm not going to say that you poached people from your other job, but right. Were you able to kind of tap into your network from your prior jobs, or how did you build a business from the ground up?
I was kind of very quiet at work. Eventually, it got out that I was the travel person, but it's really been a strong base of family and friends and then referrals. I was not a networking person. Oh. And I feel like that's what held me back because I thought networking was a sleazy thing. And I thought it was going to be like that creepy old guy being like, look, I have this pen. You want to buy this pen for me? You should really buy it. So I avoided it. But once I started doing more networking, I'm like, it's not like that at all, especially if you have like-minded people who are very giving and generous. I found myself networking, but not even networking for me really, even though obviously that's what the goal is, but I want to connect other people so that they are also successful in what their passion is. I highly recommend networking, putting yourself out there. It is scary as heck, but again, super rewarding once you do it.
The thing with the networking, other people are there to network as well. If people want to work with you, are you working with people all over the United States? Is it just in Florida?
It's easier for me to work with, obviously, Florida. If you're going to be working with a travel professional, make sure that they're licensed, especially in certain states, that they have insurance. The travel industry isn't heavily regulated, especially if I'm going to compare it to the real estate industry where you need to be licensed, take a test and all that. So just make sure that whoever you collaborate with, they have credentials like different certifications that are in the industry or that they're affiliated with industry associations like the American Society of Travel Advisors. That's one starting point. But yes, Florida, United States, but yes, I can assist. I am open.
The business is here in America. You can always help them get on a cruise that's overseas somewhere.
Yes,
I would imagine.
Exactly.
So, yep. And where do the cruises usually take off? San Francisco, Los Angeles, Miami?
You've listed some amazing places. Los Angeles, San Diego. If you're going to Alaska, Seattle, Vancouver, there's so many different cruise ports because you can also do Boston area, Maine up there during fall time, various places in Florida, Texas, Port of Galveston is really expanding right now too.
Oh, wow. So does that go to Mexico generally?
Generally, yes. Yeah. And those are just the US ports because Mediterranean cruises are usually from Barcelona or from Greece, Italy. And then you have the river cruises that sail interior in the country. So you're sailing through countries and not just to them. On the Danube, you can start in Budapest, Hungary, and sail all the way up to Germany and maybe do a pre or post in Budapest or in Munich, Prague, all these different little areas across Europe.
Wow. Okay. So when you said river cruise, all I thought it was the
Like the
Mississippi
Mississippi.
with the paddle boat. Like that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking. Like a lot of gambling and a paddle boat. Okay, so
Right.
that sounds really cool. I was supposed to go on my first cruise this past year, but because of the pandemic, it was changed. Some people might be thinking with cruise lines, there's that stigma now of, oh, you might get stuck out at sea because everyone's got
Oh,
COVID or something.
Yeah.
Put that aside because that could happen anywhere that you travel. You could get stuck in a country. We don't know what's going to happen with the world. But for people that are hesitant about cruising, what is some of the benefits of going on a cruise line? It sounds like you've got everything at your fingertips.
Right.
It's awesome.
Yes. In terms of safety, I don't think a lot of people know this widely, is that cruising is right now one of the strictest vacations that you can be on right now in terms of safety protocols. So at this moment, because things can always change, everyone, I believe, ages 5 and up does need to be vaccinated to board a cruise ship. You also need to be tested at least 2 days prior to arriving to the port and make sure you produce a negative result in order to board the cruise ship. Masks right now are not required. They are encouraged, but they're not required since cases have gone back down. They've upgraded HVAC systems.
Oh, wow.
There's still social distancing that's present on board. So they're not selling out the ships like they used to. I just had a small little bachelorette group sail this past weekend. They said there was only 450 passengers on, like, I believe the ship can fit at least 2,000 or 3,000 people. So tons of space. It's not always that case, but if you can get something like that, it's like your own private yacht ship.
So if people want to book one of these ships for a business retreat, how much time do people usually rent these rooms for to do, business training? Like, is it like the first few days at sea before they go to port? Like, how many days of training should people kind of work into their retreat?
It depends on how immersive that you really want to be.
Okay.
So I'll give a good example of the corporate retreat that I plan every year. So they are usually sticking with 4 nights. And the popular itinerary that we like to go on is on a Cozumel itinerary. So day 1 will be kind of like a kickoff event, maybe like 2 hours total. And there'll be some icebreakers, and setting expectations really is what the first day is. The next day is usually a sea day. Sea days are perfect for educational sessions because the ship is going to have other activities, but for your programming purposes, this is where you can do like keynote speeches, breakouts, more icebreakers, networking sessions, all that on your days at sea. So then when you're on your day in port in Cozumel, Mexico, everyone can either go on their own exploring, or maybe you can coordinate a group excursion to either do some snorkeling or visit some of the Mayan ruins and just get that like real downtime and real connection time outside of just being like in a session. And then your next day is usually a day at sea. So you'll be able to wrap up and do just a conclusion type of event and say thank yous. And then you're sadly back in port and it's time for everybody to go home. That's a typical 4-night itinerary.
Okay. And like you were saying before, the planning, we can probably plan this out maybe a year in advance and get the rooms all booked up and everything. This has been so exciting that you have followed your passion and you've made this really awesome business out of it, and you get to travel. Do you go on trips with all your clients to kind of make sure everything is running smoothly, or how does that work? You do?
I do. I like to go for that reason because I want to make sure that you are focused on your people and the content that you're presenting, that you don't have to, real life story, go up to the buffet to get some bananas for your keynote speech. I actually did that for one of my clients. So I'll take care of all the logistics, making sure water gets filled up, and you just take care of your people and make sure that your presentations are top notch. It doesn't always happen that I sail with clients, but if you want that extra experience, extra luxury on board, I'm more than happy to come along.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, that's great. So then you don't have all that worry like, oh God, is the sound technician going to be there or whatever?
Right.
Wow, that's really cool. Okay, so Rita, let's tell everybody how they can find you, where you're at, and the name of your podcast again.
It's the Cruise Retreat Podcast, and you can find it on any major podcast platform. I am most active on Instagram with my username Ritaventures, or you can find me on LinkedIn also. And then I have a special little goodie. If you're really wanting to dive into the planning process, I have a cruise retreat planning calendar that you can get off my website, ritaventures.net/calendar.
Awesome. And we'll have all of that in the show notes. Well, thank you so much, Rita. This has been really fun. And I've had so many questions about cruising and retreats. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I've enjoyed like gabbing a little bit on travel, but also like having fun on retreats.